Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video here on my YouTube channel. And in this video, we're going to be talking about a rather important topic. It's not going to be something that you've seen on this channel before. It's going to be kind of different. One of my talking videos where I just talk through, obviously there'll be some gameplay examples, but I'm just going to talk you through like a psychological effect that happens in Fortnite, especially within different metas, okay, different seasons. For example, okay, this season we have the SMG. And with the SMG, a lot of people have this belief that it's one of those unfair or cheesy or overpowered items. And while you're sort of right about all of these things, it's very important to not fall into the trap of pulling yourself away from using these items just because you feel like it's cheesy or unfair or uncompetitive or a lack of skill to use them. Does that make sense? So if you feel like SMG is only used by like noobs, for example, or someone who doesn't really know the game that well, it's very important to understand that that's completely different from using the SMG well. Okay, I really encourage you guys, of course, like the season's winding down, so this advice is not specifically for the SMG. The SMG is just an example, but in the future season there's going to be things 100%, because this has happened in the past for quite a while now. So there are going to be items where a lot of people are going to deem them unfair or very, you know, cheesy. Okay, now it's your job as a aspiring professional player, as a competitive player, to use whatever there is at your disposal to do extremely well in tournaments. Okay, so don't fall into the trap of thinking, okay, SMG is kind of cheesy, I don't want to use it, I'm not going to spray often. Because if you watch any sort of pro, if you've done your homework at all and done sort of any fight VOD review this season, you'll notice a pattern. And the pattern is actually really simple. Okay, it's very simple, it's straightforward. The pros are just using the SMG a lot. Okay, and when they pressure in a fight, they are using their light ammo. They use up to like 90 to 120 ammo per fight without question, right? They don't look back and sort of be like, oh, this feels bad, feels like I'm cheesing the opponent. The reality is you're just using the tools better than your opponent is, and that's why you're winning the fight. Right now, this may not be you, and this is what I'm asking you to change, is change your perspective on cheesy items or unfair items and try to use them to your disposal really effectively. Right, think about it this way, where there are certain things that give you value, right, X amount of value, and your job as a competitive player is to maximize your value output. Does that make sense? You want to get the most amount of value out of the things that you're doing. For example, instead of hitting metal that gives you +2, you're hitting metal that gives you +7. Very simple example, but that's the same idea that I want you to employ with anything in the game, not just simple stuff, right? Anything that you might believe, you know, is cheesy, you need to exploit it. Seriously, right? Understand it's part of the meta. It's part of the expectation for you as a competitive player, because all the pros are doing it. If you run into a pro and they're using the SMG, best believe they're going to use it very liberally, and they're going to be spamming that into your box just to make sure that you feel pressured and you burn mats and you have to sort of waste HP because, you know, bullets bleed through turbo build. I'll show you some examples, but the reason why I feel like this is such an important topic, because so many people this season have missed the mark completely on their meta read, right? They think the meta is something. I don't know what they believe, but they think it's something. And this might be you as well. So that's why I'm asking you to sort of take this seriously and listen to what I'm saying, right? Everyone missed the mark with Spider-Man. Everyone thought it wasn't that OP when it was 80 charges, right? And they didn't think it was OP when it was 20 charges. And to this day, they still don't think it's OP at 10 charges. You're absolutely wrong. Right, in solos, it's one of the most broken items in the game. It's one of the most stacked mobility items there is the game has to offer for a long time now, and it's really important that you sort of take it seriously. And again, we're trying to extract value out of the items that we do, or the actions that we do. We're trying to do the most effective things possible as a competitive player. That's our job. Okay, so when you think of Spider-Man, don't have these associations as it's cheap, it's cheesy. You just need to read the meta and do it. Okay, now if you're like, I want to be a good end game player, and long term I want to think in the future for like future seasons, because Spider-Man won't be there in the future seasons, you can do both, right? You can absolutely do both. There's aspects from both sides where you can sort of learn. You can learn how to read the meta and adapt to a very ever-changing meta in Fortnite, and you can pick up the end game strategy as well, because even though you have Spider-Man, you will eventually run out of charges and will have to play end game very normally. So you are training both, right? But it's important not to put yourself at a disadvantage and play the game on hard mode when it's absolutely not necessary to do that, right? Your job is to extract value. So let me show you a couple examples, right? The two main examples this season are SMG and Spider-Man, right? The cheesy items that actually have a ton of value, but no one wants to use them for some reason. Maybe I'm talking nonsense, right? Let me show you some examples from pros, No Really and Aqua, of them using the SMG very liberally in a PG fight. Now, it's very important to understand they're not just doing this because it's creative. This is actually built into them as habits. So let's take a look. So in this part of the video, we're talking about some examples of Norally and Aqua doing some cheesy or cop out tricks or unfair advantage, right? But that's the point. That's what competitive players should be doing, is trying to get as many unfair advantages as possible, right? So let's look at the first example right here. Right, so Aqua is really stuck behind this ramp. Actually, I'll give you some context. Aqua is 1 HP, right? So a lot of people would be like, okay, let me try to grab every piece, let me try to play this slowly. But you have an SMG at your disposal. It's one of the fastest firing rate weapons in Fortnite, period, right? So let's use it. Let's use it to what it's supposed to be used for. That's exactly what Norally does. He reloads his SMG and he absolutely just aggresses on Aqua. And this is what I'm trying to tell you guys to do. Yes, you can be pre-fired. Yes, there are some counters to this, which is why you shouldn't be that worried about SMG being OP, because there are ways to outplay it. But because Aqua is 1 HP, Norally opts to just SMG in. He doesn't piece control. He doesn't try to do anything fancy. He understands the power of the weapon and uses it accordingly. And there's another thing that the SMG can do, which is bleeding through turbo build, right? And I'll show you some examples of this as well. And you'll see a quick example of just deciding to spray through turbo build. Right, a lot of people just fail to do that. They don't recognize the benefit of doing this. Like, would you love to do 100 damage to your opponent for free? Here's the way to do it, but you've been missing out on this all season, right? And it's very important to next season to pick up on these things. And obviously I'll be making a ton of videos on recognizing these sort of things, but I really encourage you guys to sort of try to pick up on these things right away, because look how many hits he gets for free, right? But so many people sort of not necessarily refuse to pick up the SMG, but they don't use the SMG to its full extent, right? They just think it's like a spray and pray weapon. They just think it's something. But what about pressure? What about the bleeding through turbo build, right? And all these examples are very important. And right after this, maybe like 10 seconds later, right around here, Aqua does the exact same thing to Norally, right? And there's no reason why you can't do this in regular fights. Like, I don't know what else to say, guys. Like, really don't be biased by the fact that it's a cop-out or cheap weapon. Really be open-minded and try to play it to its strengths. And the same goes for Spider-Man, guys. Like, honestly, I feel like so many people just missed out on Spider-Man in terms of the meta. This final solo cash cup, I really recommend it. It's a solos meta thing. It's not like necessarily a duos thing. Even though it can be beneficial in duos, I do believe you can succeed in duos without the Spider-Man. A bunch of pros have sort of showcased that. But in solos, the most common example I've seen, Malabuka, for example, always lands on Spider-Man. I wonder why, right? And it's really because the Spider-Man provides a ton of value, and it's your job as a competitive player to extract that value. So with that being said, I hope this video gives you a new perspective, and I really hope you sort of change your mind and try not to be biased by the cop-out element of these items and try to use them for what they are. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I wish you the best of luck in the next season. Next videos are coming out tomorrow, and we're going to be continuing to daily upload as usual. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.